Before we start, let's take a look at the word loyalty. According to the Merriam-Webster dictionary, the definition of loyalty is the quality or an instance of being loyal. Some people benefit from it, others are hurt by it. One driver has seen both sides of loyalty, and that driver is Greg Biffle. A driver out of the Northwest, Greg has seen the highs and the lows of loyalty, and some can say it held back his career. With that being said, let's take a look back at the career of the Biff. Greg Biffle was born and raised in Vancouver, Washington, and started competing at local short tracks at 16 years old, competing all around the Pacific Northwest and winning the track championship at Portland Speedway and Tri-City Speedway. After high school, Greg would work odd jobs to help fund his career. In 1989, Greg would start racing regional races in the NASCAR Northwest Series and would compete part-time in that till 1997, where he would run 10 of the 11 races that season, scoring his only win at Twin Falls. Greg first started getting national exposure in 1995, competing in the NASCAR Winter Heat Series. After winning the championship in the 95-96 season, Greg caught the attention of Benny Parsons, which Benny would recommend Greg to Jack Roush. Before Greg can start racing for Jack, he would make 2 starts in the Busch Series for Jim Bown in the number 51 car at Rockingham and Homestead, scoring a best finish of 23rd at Rockingham. In 1998, Greg would get the call to drive for Jack Roush's Truck Series program, driving the Granger F-150. Greg's rookie season was a so-so season. Greg would score 8 top 5s with a best finish of second twice, 12 top 10s, 4 poles, and an average finish of 10.4, would end Greg 8th in the points and would win him Rookie of the Year. In 1999, Greg would score his first win of his truck career at Memphis after starting on pole and leading 74 laps that day. What followed after that would lead to a history-making season that will hold for a quarter century. Greg would go on to score 8 more wins that year, racking up a total of 9 wins, 14 top 5s, 19 top 10s, 4 poles, and an average finish of 6.7. Those 9 wins would be the winningest truck season for 26 years, till Corey Himes shattered it with 12 wins in 2025. However, even with all that success, Greg would end up finishing second in the points to Jack Sprague by 8 points. Greg and the Granger team would return in 2000, and they would make sure that they brought home the championship trophy. Greg and team would score 5 wins that year, along with 18 top 5s and 18 top 10s, and had an average finish of 5.8, leading to Greg winning the Truck Series championship. With that accomplishment, Greg would move up to the Busch Series in 2001, driving Jack's flagship number 60 Granger car, and would run a handful of truck races that year as well. Greg would also have his truck crew chief, Randy Goss, with him, and they had no trouble finding success. They would score their first win at the 8th race of the year at Nashville Superspeedway. From there, they would score 4 more wins, ending the season at 5 wins, 16 top 5s, 21 top 10s, 2 poles, and an average finish of 11.2 would place Greg 4th in points and win him Rookie of the Year. Greg would also score 2 wins in the Truck Series that year and the 4 starts he made as well in 2001. The success from 2001 would carry on to 2002, as Greg would score 4 wins that year, along with 20 top 5s and 25 top 10s, with a 10th place average finish and 5 poles, which scored Greg the Busch Series championship, being the first driver to win the Truck and Busch championships in their career. 2002 would also see Greg make his Cup debut at California, scoring a 13th place finish among his 7 starts that year. That finish would be his best finish, as Greg made his other 6 starts for Andy Petrie and Petty Enterprises, equaling to no success. Plus, Greg would fail to qualify for 3 races that year. Now granted, he was in the part-time car, so we'll cut him some slack. After winning the championship in 2002, Greg would head back up to the Cup Series in 2003, bringing the 16 car back full-time in the Roush fleet. 2003 for Greg was kind of like his other Roush teammates not named Matt Kenseth. Disappointing. Greg would only score 3 top 5s and 6 top 10s that year, and would also fail to qualify for the Las Vegas race at the beginning of the year. But Greg would also see the high of victory. At the Pepsi 400 at Daytona, Greg would score his first win after playing the fuel mileage game, He would end the year 20th in points with a 19.8 average finish and would finish second in the Rookie of the Year standings behind Jamie McMurray. Greg would also run 14 Busch races, mainly in the Evans Motorsports number 7, and he would score 2 wins in that car. In 2004, Greg would have himself a busy season, as he would run both the Cup and Busch Series schedules that year. He'll run 70 races that season in the 16 and in the 60 car. His Cup season saw a slight improvement from 2003. Greg would make all the races and would score 2 wins that season, winning at Michigan and the season finale at Homestead. Greg would have 4 top 5s, 8 top 10s, a pole, and would have an average finish of 19.2, all slight improvements. But Greg would end up missing the inaugural chase that year, finishing 17th in points. Now Greg's Busch Series season was much more successful. Greg would score 5 wins that season, along with 15 top 5s and 21 top 10s, 2 poles, and an average finish of 12.7. Now the one thing that hurt Greg's 2004 was that he had 7 DNFs that year, and 6 of those 7 were from engine failures and other part failures. He would end up finishing a distant 3rd in points. Greg would run a truck race in 2004 for Circle Bar Racing and would end up finishing 8th at Homestead. 2005 would see Greg make 63 starts across Cup and Busch and would have his breakout year in Cup. Greg would score 6 wins in 2005, the most wins he'll score in a single season, 15 top 5s, another most in a season, 21 top 10s, and an average finish of 11.9, and would end up finishing second in the points to Tony Stewart by 35 points. It would be the closest Greg would get to completing the trifecta of winning the top 3 championships in NASCAR. In the Busch Series, Greg would race for Bruco Motorsports and only score 1 win at Phoenix, 16 top 5s and 21 top 10s and 27 starts that year. Even not entering 8 races, Greg still managed to finish 10th in points. The 2006 season would end up being a down year considering how great 2005 was. Greg would only score 2 wins at Darlington and winning his 3rd in a row at Homestead, 8 top 5s and 15 top 10s that season. What hurt Greg the most was his 6 DNFs that year, 3 being crashes and 3 being engine failures. He would have missed the chase and finished 13th in points with an 18.8 average finish. Greg would also run 30 Busch races, mainly for Roush and a few races for Bruco. Greg would score 1 win at California, 9 top 5s, 14 top 10s, and a 14.2 average finish, would help Greg finish 9th in points. In 2007, Greg would have a change on top of the pit box. He would lose longtime crew chief Doug Richard and would start the season with Pat Trison and end with Greg Irwin. With those changes, Greg would see a drop in his Cup stats. Greg would only score 1 win that year, along with 5 top 5s and 11 top 10s that year, along with a pole and 5 DNFs and an average finish of 18.5. But that 1 win came with some controversy. The win came at the LifeLock 400 at Kansas, and the race was a long one, with 2 rain delays and 11 cautions that day. At this time, Kansas does not have lights around the track, so it's now getting to a point of beating the dark. To do that, NASCAR lowers the race length from 267 laps to 210 laps throughout the race. From that, everyone is now doing the best they can to save fuel to make it to when NASCAR calls the race. NASCAR calls the race, and Greg is leading. All he has to do is cross the start-finish line. Wait a minute. What's happening here? Yeah, Greg is out of gas, and he's being passed by Clint Boyer, Jimmy Johnson, and Casey Mears. By rule, you have to maintain pace car speed to keep your position, and it was clear Greg couldn't do it. Jimmy and Clint both questioned the result, but NASCAR insisted that Greg kept a reasonable pace to the checkered flag. Plus, the field was frozen at caution, so Greg was saved by that as well, and he would end the year 14th in points. While his Cup season wasn't up to par, his Busch season wasn't any better, as he would go winless in 2007. Greg would have 3 top 5s and 13 top 10s and 3 poles in 31 starts, and those starts also saw 9 DNFs in 2007. But even with all that, Greg still managed to finish 9th in points. Yeah, the Busch Series at that time was just pitiful. 2008 would go on to see improvement from Greg in the Cup Series. Greg would make the chase for the first time since 2005, and he would start the chase off hot, winning the first 2 races at New Hampshire and Dover. Along with those 2 wins, Greg would have 12 top 5s and 17 top 10s, 2 poles, and an average finish of 12.9, and would end the year 3rd in the point standings. In the newly named Nationwide Series, Greg would cut his schedule in half to 15 races and would score 4 top 5s and 10 top 10s that season. Now we come to 2009, and unfortunately, Greg would go winless in the Cup Series for the first time. But he would also be Roush Fenway's best driver that season. Greg would have 10 top 5s and 16 top 10s, with a best finish of 3rd 3 times and a 14th place average finish, would help Greg finish 7th in the points. In the Nationwide Series, Greg would see victory lane once again. He would score 2 wins at Las Vegas and Phoenix that year. Those 2 wins would be Greg's last wins in the Nationwide Series. Greg would end up with the 2 wins, 4 top 5s, and 9 top 10s in the 14 starts he made that year. We enter a new decade in 2010, and the 16 team finds victory lane once again. They score 2 wins at Pocono and Kansas. They would have 9 top 5s and 19 top 10s that season, with a 15.4 average finish in 2010, and they would end the year 6th in the points. In the Nationwide Series, Greg would only compete in 10 races with Curb Racing in their 27 car. Greg would score 3 top 5s and 7 top 10s in his last Nationwide season. 2011 would see Greg go winless again, scoring a best finish of 3rd at New Hampshire. But halfway through 2011, Greg would have a change on top of the pit box. After a struggling first half of the season with only 5 top 10s and 18 starts, Greg would lose Greg Irwin and would have Matt Pusha for the rest of 2011. Greg would finish the year with 3 top 5s, 10 top 10s, 3 poles, and would miss the chase, finishing 16th in the points with a 16.8 average finish. However, in 2012, they would find success again, and Greg and Matt would put together his 2nd best season in Greg's Cup career. Greg would score 2 wins at Texas and Michigan, along with 12 top 5s and 21 top 10s and 3 poles with a 10.2 average finish. Greg would finish 5th in the chase points, but in full season points, Greg would have finished 2nd, 19 points behind Brad Keselowski. Just gonna add that in there for no reason. In 2013, Greg and the team would find success again, even with the new Gen 6 car. They would go on and score 1 win at Michigan, reaching a major milestone for Ford, getting them their 1,000th win in NASCAR. But most importantly, this ended up being Greg's last win in the Cup Series. Greg would end the year with 4 top 5s and 13 top 10s along with that win in 2013, would end the year 9th in points. In 2014, Greg's performance would be relatively similar to many other years. Greg would only have 3 top 5s with a best finish of 2nd at Talladega and 11 top 10s in 2014, and average a 16.4 finish. Greg would end up making the revamped chase and would end up finishing 14th in the points. We now fast forward to 2015 and Greg's stats take a huge dip. Greg would score 3 top 5s again with a best finish of 2nd in the Coke 600. Those 3 top 5s would be 3 of his 4 top 10s that year. They would have a 20th place average finish in 2015 and would end the year 20th in points. If 2015 wasn't the signs of not only Greg's downfall, but Roush's downfall, then 2016 solidified it. Greg would get new crew chiefs with Brian Patty and Robbie Reiser for 2 races, and would only have 1 top 5, a 5th at New Hampshire, 3 top 10s, and a pole that year at Daytona. Greg would end the year 23rd in points, and at the end of the year, Greg would retire from full-time competition at 46 years old, and we wouldn't see Greg in NASCAR for a few years until a good opportunity would come about. After many conversations with Kyle Busch, Greg would go on to make a one-off for Kyle's truck team at Texas in 2019, and Greg was fairly competitive. Greg would start the race 6th and would hold off Matt Crafton for the last 11 laps and succeed in the fuel strategy game and would win at Texas. This only proved Greg can still do it at a high level. He would make another one-off in 2020 for GMS Racing at Darlington, but unfortunately finished 19th. Now granted, he had no practice or qualifying, so we'll just let that slide. From 2021 to 2023, Greg would run 9 races in the SRX series, where he would win 3 heats and score 2 podium finishes. In 2022, Greg would make 5 starts for backmarker NY Racing in the 44 car in the Cup Series, and would have a best finish of 20th at Atlanta. And across 2024 and 2025, Greg would make 3 starts in the ARCA West Series at Tri-City and Portland, scoring a best finish of third at Portland in 2025. Yep, at 54 years old, Greg is still as competitive as he was, and is a great humanitarian as he delivered supplies for those in trouble after Hurricane Helene hit and helped those who were stranded. What a guy. You know, looking back at Greg's career, he had his share of success, but he could have had more. But why was that? Well, let's look back at our word at the start of the video. Loyalty. The one thing that hurt Greg's career was his loyalty to not only Jack Roush, but to his sponsors. Greg revealed on an episode of the Dale Jr. Download that he had an offer from Joe Gibbs to drive the 20 after Tony Stewart left. He also states he received offers from Richard Childress and an ownership stake at Petty Enterprises at different times in his career. The Gibbs opportunity came while Biffle was battling for a championship. He thought he couldn't announce he was leaving while he was battling for a championship. Plus, he was good friends with his sponsor, 3M. He didn't want to leave those sponsors hanging, and he felt a loyalty to Jack Roush. And as technology passed them by, it hindered Greg's performance to eventual sad demise. Had Greg left Roush, he could have had 30 to 35 wins and maybe a championship at the cup level. But we can't change the past and can only imagine what if. Hey everyone, I hope you all enjoyed the video, because, to be real honest with you, I wasn't too sure whether or not to upload this or not. I had this in the works for a while. I was just being kind of lazy about getting it done. I figured, maybe I can get this done by Christmas, which, obviously, the unfortunate tragedy that happened on, December 18th, kind of changed that, with this no longer being just a video looking back at Greg's career, but now more of a tribute, because we lost not only a great driver, but an even better person. And we lost not just Greg, obviously, his wife and 2 young children, and the other 3 passengers that were involved in that flight. It just goes to show you that, life is precious, and never take any day for granted, because you never know when your next day is going to be your last. So if anything is left to say is, hug your loved ones and tell them that you love them, because you may lose that chance. I guess if anything, just shout out to my friends, Jared and John. They both suggested not only just for me to upload this, but they gave me the idea to do the video on Greg. So if you have any suggestions on a look back at the history of a driver or team, please leave it in the comment section, and I'll take it into consideration. And I guess if there's one thing left to say is just, I hope you all have a happy holidays, whether you celebrate Christmas or Kwanzaa or Hanukkah, whatever you guys choose to celebrate. I hope you enjoy your holiday, and I guess I'll talk to y'all later.